Hi YouTube, welcome to another edition of Horror Hands, and for this video I'm going to be talking about some of the best movies from section 3 of the Video Nasties list. So section 3 was a bunch of movies, about 82 I think in total, that were at one time seized by the authorities, but they never faced any kind of prosecution and they weren't banned, so they were put back on the shelf and never officially made it to the Video Nasties list, along with the 72 films that did. But yeah, whether the authorities had a moment of clarity and just realised these were just movies, I don't know. But they were seized at one point, but in most cases quickly got put back on the shelves. And there's some really good movies as part of section 3. I actually had to leave a few off, else the video would have been too long. But there's some really good movies, and interestingly, there's some movies on the list which I'll cover that were just as strong, if not stronger, than some of the films that actually made it onto the Video Nasties list. So even more perplexing details here when it comes to Video Nasties. But I'll get straight into it. So first up, of the best movies from section 3 is Christmas Evil, which is a fun Christmas horror film. This is about this guy who he loves Christmas. He pretty much celebrates Christmas around the clock throughout the year. His house is always decorated and things like that. And I think he's like a factory worker, and he loses his job or something. He comes on hard times around Christmas, and he just kind of snaps and goes around killing people dressed as Santa Claus. But yeah, cool movie, interesting ending, which I won't give away, but the ending is pretty... makes you raise an eyebrow, but not particularly nasty. There's a scene when I think he stabs someone in the eye with a toy. I think maybe that drove the censors over the edge and freaked them out, I don't know. But it's got a couple of moments, but not overly nasty, which is probably why it never strayed further than section 3. But it's a fun film to watch, definitely a good one to watch around this time of year. So that's Christmas Evil. Okay, next up is Dawn of the Dead. Yes, the British censors even jumped on George Romero's zombie classic. So this was at one point pulled off the shelves for supposedly being too corrupting to society. I don't think it was off there for very long. I think it quickly made its way back to the shelves. And probably the authorities felt a bit silly when they saw how commercially and critically well received this movie was. But I've never considered Dawn of the Dead to be an overly gory film. It's got a couple of moments, but why anyone saw this and thought it had to be taken from shelves, I've no idea. Whether they just sort of roped it in with the likes of Zombie Flesh Eaters and Hell of the Living Dead, that kind of thing, I don't know. But fortunately, Dawn of the Dead did make its way back onto the shelves. Okay, next up is a movie called Dead Kids, which I think was under the title Strange Behaviour in the UK when it was seized. And this is a great film. Not a lot of people talk about this one. I think it might be an Australian film. There's like some murders going on in this town, and these kids are disappearing. And I think they're like cloning them or making imitations of them. If I remember correctly, it's been a long time since I watched Dead Kids. I bought it on a blind buy, and I remember thinking it was a really, really good film. And it does get some really good reviews. It's just that Dead Kids or Strange Behaviour never seems to get talked about all that much. But this is a really interesting and overlooked film that's definitely worth checking out. Nothing that I think deserves a place on the Video Nasties list. I think there's a bit of needle to the eye violence, which would have freaked out the censors. But other than that, there's not a lot. But it's a great film. I definitely recommend Dead Kids. Right, next up is Deep Red. So Dario Argento's Giallo masterpiece. I love Deep Red. It's always been one of my favourite Argento films. Again, there's a bit of violence. I think there's a bit of sort of straight razor violence, which might have got this one highlighted, but again, it didn't get past section 3. So hopefully they probably didn't see much merit in it, but they realised it wasn't a mindless violent piece of trash. It did have a lot of merit to it and was a pretty decent film. So yeah, Deep Red thankfully found its way back onto shelves without any persecution. Okay, next up is Don't Answer the Phone, probably one of the more infamous ones from Section 3. This one is quite a controversial film. I've heard it described as the most misogynistic horror film ever made. I've heard that on a couple of occasions, so I'm sure that probably got it on the wrong side of numerous people. But this is about a guy, I think he might be like a Vietnam vet or something, pretty psychotic, disturbed guy. He goes around killing people under the guise of like a photographer. He makes out as a professional photographer, but he ends up killing women, and he starts like stalking this woman radio host person and kind of telling her all about his crimes. So a lot of violence against women in this one. I can see why it would have attracted the wrong kind of attention. Again, didn't get further than Section 3. It's not overly gory, but I will give it to this one. There is quite a bit of violence in it and quite a few kills, and again a lot of sort of violence towards women, which is frowned upon. So yeah, Don't Answer the Phone. Definitely worth checking out though. It's not bad if you like your exploitation horror. Okay, this is a really interesting one. This is Eaten Alive, one of the Italian cannibal movies. This is one that I'm very, very surprised did not make it to the official Video Nasties list. These Italian cannibal movies were pretty strong films. They had some really gory scenes, a lot of violence, and of course the real life animal cruelty. So why this one didn't make it as an official Video Nasty when things like Cannibal Ferox, Cannibal Holocaust, Mountain of the Cannibal God, Man from Deep River, all those other cannibal movies did, I do not know, because this is easily as strong as those aforementioned cannibal films, and definitely stronger than a lot of the other films that just made it to the Video Nasties list. Anyway, so yeah, this is always I've always wondered why this one never made it. It's always a confusing one that this one was only Section 3, but it did find its way back onto the shelves. In terms of the movie, it's arguably my favourite Italian cannibal film. I really like Eaten Alive. I think it's a really good film. And they used an actual story, I think it might have been the Jonestown thing, where there was that giant cult and the cult leader made everyone commit suicide. They kind of integrate that story into Eaten Alive. Ivan Rasimov is this cult leader in the jungle, and a woman is trying to rescue her sister from this cult. So there's a bit of a story to Eaten Alive, as well as the mindless cannibal action. I think it's really good. If you like Italian cannibal films and you can handle the violence, Eaten Alive is a top recommendation. But only Section 3, surprisingly. Next up, this is a film that doesn't get talked about much. This is Enter the Devil. In contrast to Eaten Alive, this one is a very, very tame film. Hardly anything happens in this one. It's a very slow burn film. I liked it though, regardless of that. It takes place in a very kind of, it's like almost like a Western setting in the desert, with a cult, something going on with a cult, and there's a couple of like sheriffs or something that are trying to get to the bottom of it. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I remember enjoying it. Like I say, it's very slow, but I liked it for the atmosphere, and the look of the cult at the end was pretty cool. But I thought I'd give this one a mention, because there's absolutely nothing in terms of gore or violence. I'm very curious to know why this one was even picked up. But it doesn't get talked about a lot, and I think it is worth a bit of a watch if you can handle the slow burn. So yeah, Enter the Devil, pretty cool. Next up is Erotic Rites of Frankenstein. So Jess Franco, one of his better films. I think he'd already done Count Dracula which was not received very well. I thought Count Dracula was great, but it didn't do very well. So I think he came back with this one and sort of tried again with that sort of Hammer horror-esque style. And he does a great job. Does a great job with this one, and it really does have kind of the hallmarks and the feel of a Hammer film. It's got that great gothic atmosphere, set in a big castle, some pretty cool set pieces, pretty decent cast. I think Dennis Price plays Frankenstein, I believe. I think Howard Vernon pops up in this one. Really good film. I've no idea why this one attracted the attention of the censors, because it's more like I say, a gothic Hammer horror type film. It's not sort of the more violent, trashy stuff that they singled out. So yeah, no idea why this one was taken off the shelves, but it's a really good film. Definitely recommend it if you like sort of your Euro horror and Hammer horror-esque style movies. And it's nice to see an example of a decent Jess Franco film. Next up we have The Evil, which is a really cool haunted house movie. In this one, Richard Crenna is restoring a big sort of giant house mansion thing, and it's haunted, and him and his helpers are sort of terrorized by these spirits and things like that. Really cool movie. Again, I've no idea why they felt the need to seize this one, because it's supernatural, not really any kind of imitable violence or things that could corrupt the youth. So yeah, no idea why The Evil was on the list, but it's a really good film. Definitely check this one out if you want to see a good haunted house horror film. Okay, next up is Friday the 13th. Yes, Friday the 13th at one point was seized in the UK by the censors and the authorities. Now, Friday the 13th, although it is now really popular and very successful, I am kind of surprised this one didn't make it to the official Video Nasties list, simply because of the numerous deaths in it that were perpetrated by sort of implements. The British censors hated any kind of horror film where people were killed by sort of tools or anything you could find in the house or lying around in the shed. They were terrified that the British public would imitate this violence and get the nearest hammer or chisel or whatever and start killing people. It sounds made up, but it's true. So I am surprised that Friday the 13th was not taken and put as a video nasty, simply for that reason. And it does have some pretty cool kills in it, but this one did make it back to the shelves, and obviously now is one of the most famous slashers ever made. So yeah, Friday the 13th Part 2 was also seized as well. Next up we have The Hills of Eyes, another one that was taken off the shelf. Again, this is now we know this is a classic horror now, really good film. I suspect maybe this one was garnered a bit of negative attention just from the plot alone, sort of a cannibalistic hillbilly family. It sounds a bit strong. Got a bit of a grindhouse feel to it. I think it's a great film. Whether anyone did actually watch this and look at it for its merit, I don't know, but of course it made it back onto the shelves, so thankfully it wasn't outright banned. So yeah, Hills of Eyes. Okay, next up, this is another one that I enjoyed that doesn't get talked about hardly at all. This is Invasion of the Blood Farmers, which is a really trashy, low budget film about it's a cult that want to resurrect this body or something, this demon or something, and I think they need blood in order to do it. But it's really low budget, sort of filmed out in the sticks, but a great example of kind of grindhouse drive-in cinema. If you like that kind of movie, definitely check out Invasion of the Blood Farmers. I doubt that anyone on the British censors sat and watched this movie properly. It could have just been this image on the front of a of a guy with a pitchfork that freaked them out and got it onto the shelves. But again, section 3, so it didn't go any farther than that. And there's not really anything there's nothing in it that's offensive or anything like that. It's more silly than anything, but I enjoyed it. It's like I say, a very good grindhouse exploitation film. Okay, next up is Mausoleum, a really cool monster movie. Bobby Breezy, she turns into this sort of slimy monster and kills a few people. Been years since I've seen it, but I've always loved Mausoleum. Definitely my kind of film. No idea why they took this one off. It's a silly monster movie. Nothing offensive or that violent in this one. Not even that much of an offensive title, to be honest. So, who knows? But this did find itself on section 3 at one point. Okay, next up we have Night Beast. One of my favourite movies. Another really cool monster movie. So I don't know why this one was deemed that offensive. It could have been somebody just saw the first 10 minutes, which features the Night Beast ripping out a few intestines and thought, no, we don't want any of that, thank you. And it was taken off the shelves, but that thankfully didn't face any more persecution and got back on the shelves after a while. But yeah, Night Beast is awesome. One of my favourite movies. Okay, next up we have more Jess Franco with Oasis of the Zombies. And this is a film that gets a lot of criticism. I think a lot of people find this one very boring, very hard to get through. I actually have always really liked Oasis of the Zombies. It takes place in the desert, and it is very slow. I'll give it that. Not a lot happens, but it has an absolutely wonderful ambience to it, which I don't know if Jess Franco meant to capture it the way he did, but it's quite almost like quite a hauntingly beautiful film, especially when you see the zombie silhouettes up on the hill of the desert, sort of slowly clambering around. It's got a lot of atmosphere to it, and it's beautifully shot. Some cool looking zombies in it, but yeah, it's certainly not a fast paced film, and I think that that seems to turn a lot of people off. But I definitely recommend it for the ambience and the atmosphere. Again, why anybody thought this one needed taking off the shelves, I don't know, because very little happens in it, and it's not particularly gory. I imagine it got roped in with the rest of the zombie films. So yeah, but yeah, I've always been a fan of Oasis of the Zombies. It is one that I would recommend, even though a lot of people do not seem to like it. Next up is Rabid, David Cronenberg's Rabid. So they did go after some quite good films as part of section 3. Again, I don't really know why they would have gone for this one, because it's not a particularly offensive title. I think it's a great movie. I think Rabid is a really, really well done film. Nothing all that in your face. It's quite violent and quite scary in places, but nothing all that in your face. Nothing about it screams, offensive, violent trash. So I don't know why they came after Rabid, but they did. But yeah, that's Rabid's a really good film. Next up we have The Prowler. I talked about The Prowler recently in my 1981 video, but great slasher, really, really, really good slasher. I would wager they had a big problem with the killer who wields a pitchfork throughout the film. Like I say, they did not like the use of tools to kill people. So I imagine they probably freaked out and thought that everyone was going to pick up the nearest pitchfork and start killing each other, which is why this one was taken off the shelves. But The Prowler is an excellent slasher film, very underrated. One that I would definitely recommend checking out if you've not seen it, and features some of Tom Savini's best work. So yeah, definitely check out The Prowler. Next up is Suspiria. Again, no idea why they would have jumped on this one and taken it off the shelf. We're getting nothing about Suspiria. Screams violent gore fest. It's a very artistic film, very psychedelic, really well made. It's got a couple of gruesome deaths, but again, it's that well made. It doesn't really scream like that it's offensive trash. So no idea how they even kind of cottoned on to Suspiria. Again, it's only section 3, so whether they did realise there's nothing in it, I don't know. Okay, next up is the infamous Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And this is a really interesting one because there are films on the Video Nasties list which were on there, I think, because they associated them with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So a couple of Tobe Hooper films, Funhouse, Eaten Alive. I think it was Tobe Hooper's name that got them on the Video Nasties list because he directed this. But this didn't make it onto the Video Nasties list. So, very confusing. I can totally see why they would have thought this one would be problematic just for the title alone, and a cover that would have been similar to this, and people being put on hooks and killed with chainsaws. On paper it sounds awful. So yeah, they did seize it, but it made its way back off the shelves, and of course became one of the most successful and popular horror films of all time. So there we go. Next up, another absolutely baffling one, The Thing. The Thing was seized and taken off the shelves for a while, which is just crazy. I have absolutely no idea why. I can't even fathom why they would have taken this one off the shelf. It's got no imitable violence. It's a shape-shifting alien out in the Antarctic. Nothing that you could link to modern day Britain. No violence against women. It's an all-male cast. So yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. Very sort of inconspicuous title. Nothing that jumps out at you. But yeah, they did seize The Thing for a short while here in the UK. And then the last one of great movies from section 3 is Zombie Holocaust. And this is another one why I'm amazed this one did not make the official Video Nasties list. It's just as strong as the zombie films that are on there, and it's just as strong as some of the cannibal films that are on there. This one mixes a bit of zombie and cannibal action. I remember watching this as a kid and thinking this one was blisteringly violent, had some great deaths in it, and I really like how they used both zombies and cannibals. So this was prime for the Video Nasties list. Even the title, Zombie Holocaust, is one that screams out, please ban me. But no, this only made it to section 3. So yeah, it makes me think they just arbitrarily put films back on the shelf. I don't know. But Zombie Holocaust is definitely worth checking out. I don't hear nearly enough people talk about this one, but if you do like sort of things like zombie flesh eaters and your Italian cannibal films, this is a perfect mix of both of those subgenres. So definitely check out Zombie Holocaust. So hope you enjoyed that. Hope you got some recommendations there. Let me know if there's any other films from section 3 that you like and that you'd recommend. I'd be really interested to know what you think. So thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned for more videos.